The law presumes that a person of good character unless proven otherwise. If a statement about a person is defamatory and affects the reputation of that person in the eyes of the public, that person may have a claim for defamation against the maker of that defamatory statement. The governing legislation for defamation in Malaysia is the Defamation Act 1957. The Defamation Act only applies to civil claims. The Defamation Act does not define the word defamation. Instead, the defamation is to be found in Malaysia case law and the English common law. The common law of England, as at 7 April 1956, in relation to defamation is applicable in Malaysia. At common law, there are two types of defamations. First is libel. Libel is defamation in permanent form. For example, written words in article, newspapers, Facebook posts, or WhatsApp messages. Second is slander. Defamation in temporary form, such as spoken words. Moreover, to succeed in an action for defamation, the plaintiff has to prove that the alleged defamatory statement refers to the plaintiff. As for the defense, once the elements for libel or slander are satisfied, the following are common defenses that may be raised with justifications: absolute privilege, qualified privilege, and fair command. Other popular case that involve Defamation Act is in February 4, 2019, which is Teresa Koch case. Teresa Koch filed a case where damages from Sharhan over the post on his personal Facebook page, claiming that the defendant had written and published an article implying that she was against Islam.
The background of this case, the plaintiff Irene Fernandez was in a public figure and continues to be a well-known social activist, especially in the areas of migrant, worker and women's rights. She also a director of Tenaga Nita Sinar Berhad, a well-known non-profit organisation funded by the plaintiff. The publisher and owner of the newspaper Utusan Malaysia is the first defendant. The first defendant released a publication, the Impunch article, that was featured in the Utusan Malaysia on September 20, 1995. The second defendant is an employee of Utusan Malaysia at the time of the incident. The heading of the dispute article, Sikap Irene Lengahkan Siasatan, it wrote by the second defendant. And the first defendant printed then published the article. The plaintiff had been asked by the police for help in the investigation, and the plaintiff had purposefully refused being investigated by the police, and as a result, lied about her well-being. The court had to decide if the Impunch article and the Impunch terms were actually capable of carrying the defamatory meanings claimed by the plaintiff in their normal and ordinary meanings in the sense of the Impunch article as a whole. The defendants argued that given the seriousness of the plaintiff or Tenaga Nita's public charges of ill treatment of illegal immigrants and abuse, the plaintiff should have given the police her full cooperation in their investigation. Defendants also invoked the defense of reason, fair speech and qualified privilege.
On the judgment day, the plaintiff had pleaded that the article that has been published was a contrived and strange information that has elements of defamation on it. Hence, that is the reason why the plaintiff had filed the case on the defamation case. When the judge had saw the elements of defamation and asked the defendants to give justifications, the plaintiff gave justifications that doesn't counter with the actual problem. And their justifications were: 1. The police investigation with the plaintiff wasn't about the press release by Tenaga Nita. The plaintiff did not make herself available for the police interview. But all justifications by the defendants were rejected because none of it were true. 1. The police investigation was not about the press release by Tenaga Nita. 2. The plaintiff had been cooperating all the time with the police. 3. The police didn't ask for any documents or related materials about Tenaga Nita, and that what makes the defendants have no justifications to rely on the case, because they have no justifications that can counter with the actual problem, because all of the justifications that were given by them wasn't the real problem. From the article that has been published, there were so many harsh words that has been used in the article, such as muslihat, tipu daya, berjaya dalam usaha, pendedah kemungkaran, pejuang hak asasi dan sebagainya. Apakah sebenarnya Hela? And last but not least was lengahkan. In the article was all about the expressions, the defendant's expression, to describe her efforts in exposing the ill treatment of the plaintiff. Due to the article was seen to be more accusatory, and the article seems to be not fair, as it can tarnish the plaintiff's reputation. There was enough evidence of the ill will by the defendants, and the justifications that were given by them was not satisfactory for the defendants that falls into being malicious.
In conclusion, the impunged terms in the impunged article were defamatory to the complainant and were capable of doing so. The defendants in this case were found to be responsible. It should be remembered that the plaintiff was and continues to be a public figure and well-known activist who has represented Malaysia and spoken and delivered papers at numerous international conferences. The contested article and words made strong accusations of dishonesty and lack of dignity. As a result, the plaintiff was paid 200,000 in general damage for libel.